Shalom. Tushiyah Life Ministries welcomes you in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Christ. We present sound wisdom for a successful walk, taking the light of the word to the world to edify, equip, and empower disciples and apostles of Yeshua, our Messiah. This is the week of Yahweh's 7-day celebration called Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles. We want to thank you for being a part of this special week of ministry. During these next 6 days, we'll continue looking at our theme, helping others find the way home. This is day 3, and the focus of homecoming, helping others find the way home, is why do you believe his story? As believers, it's essential we know what we believe and why we believe. And so we're going to talk about that very thing. Why do you believe his story? We talked about it yesterday, which basically is the Bible, the word of God, which comes from God. Why do you believe his story? It's really difficult, if not downright impossible, to help someone find the way home if you aren't sure what the intended destination is. History is the authorized account of his instructions to and interactions with humanity. History is good for teaching, reproof, correction, and instruction that will help equip one with an effective and fruitful life. His story is about placing a model of heaven into history for humanity to get to know and dwell with him. So why do you believe his story? Do you believe it because you were taught to do so? Do you believe it because the culture you grew up in subscribed to it? Do you believe it because you've done research and this is the most reasonable conclusion in your mind? On day 1, I introduced 3 questions we can use when building a bridge of communication to other people who have belief systems different than our own, and find out why they believe what they believe and what other considerations they took into account. At some point in your life, you need to ask these questions of yourself. When someone asks you, do you believe in God? The first question should be, which God are you talking about? People often assume when you say God, they're talking about Yahweh Elohim of Israel, the God of the Bible. But even he acknowledged there are other gods, although false to him. In Joshua chapter 24, verse 15, he put it this way: if it seems disagreeable to you to serve Yahweh Elohim of Israel, and you want to serve the gods of the people across the river or the Amorites in whose land you live in, choose today. But as for me and for my house, we will serve Yahweh, because he's the Elohim of Israel. Now, every household passes on the tradition of what they believe, and that's why they should do it. And that's what they should do. However, the only concern is, what is the content of what they're presenting? You may have been raised a Buddhist, or maybe Hindu, or Muslim, or maybe Roman Catholic, perhaps Protestant Christian or Reformed Christian, or any number of other things that people find to believe in, including themselves. The question is, what are you willing to stake your eternal destiny on? If you believe his story, then you must believe that God exists. That is the God of the Bible. You should ask yourself, though, why do I believe the God of the Bible exists? Is it because I was told he exists? Is it because I feel him in my hands? I feel him in my feet. I feel him all over me. It's an emotional feeling thing. Is that why I know he exists? Or is it because I have sought after the truth and I've looked at many things and it turned out to be that he is the truth? This is a question you might find difficult, but it's really necessary to be able to answer. If you say you believe the Bible, you should be able to answer that in a clear, concise, and in a compelling way. If you say that you believe the Bible, you should be able to explain why you believe it, not like a theology professor. But if you're not there already because you've been walking with him for 20, 30 or more years, you should begin to understand and know what you believe and why you choose to believe it. Hopefully, that belief in his word begins with believing in the God himself of the Bible. So let me pose these questions to you. You can answer them in your head or you can jot them down, but I'm trusting you will actually give them some real consideration. When you say, I believe in God, what exactly do you mean by that? It's been said, and I believe holds true, that a person's theology dictates their morality. If it's the God of the Bible you say that you're referring to when you say, I believe in God, then there's a certain way you're supposed to carry yourself personally, privately, and in public. And those ways we carry ourselves are to be compared with the precepts, principles, and practices that Yahweh has instructed his people to follow. If your position is that you believe in the God of the Bible, how did you come to that conclusion? As mentioned earlier, was it because you were taught to believe that way, or the culture or community that you're around believes that way? Or you've done research objectively, considering a lot of things, and this was the most reasonable conclusion for you? That third question, have you honestly considered what you believe might be inaccurate a little or a lot? Some years ago, I had to ask myself this same question. I had to ask myself, why do I believe what I choose to believe? And I had to ask myself that question because I knew people who had grown up in other belief systems. And I had to ask, do I believe in the God of the Bible because my grandparents who raised me taught me that way, which I'm glad they did? They also brought me up in the community that believes the same way. And so that became the norm for my life. And actually, even the country we lived in at that time had more of a bent toward believing in the God of the Bible, although some people had extremes one way or the other. So why do I believe, as I do now, in the God of the Bible? I did some research and I had to answer some tough questions for myself. I had to make some very specific decisions after answering those questions. But what about you? How did you come to the conclusion of believing what you believe in? I mean, think about it. If I had been brought up a Muslim, I would think that that's right. If I had been brought up a Buddhist, I would think that's right. But why do I think being a follower of Yahweh through his son Yeshua is the right way? Because I've considered a number of things. I choose to believe Yahweh, and I believe in him through his son Yeshua. I believe he exists not just because I was told that, but because of the evidence of his existence. I don't have a blind faith. I did at one time, but no. I have an evidential faith. You know, you watch a lot of those crime programs and they say the number one thing is evidence. A man by the name of Larnell Harris had a song, Evidence, Evidence. Does your life have enough evidence to show that you're a follower of Christ? Is there evidence that God exists? When I see a watch, I don't have to wonder, is there a watchmaker? The evidence of the watch tells me the watchmaker exists. Because you see, the parts that make up the watch didn't make themselves. The parts that make up the watch could not assemble themselves. And the parts that make up the watch couldn't cause themselves to be an accurate chronograph, that is, measure of time. When I look at a 4-bedroom house with 2.5 baths, a living room, kitchen room, and dining room, 2-car garage, 2-car attached garage, if you don't mind, and a finished basement, I don't wonder if there was a builder. No. I know by the evidence of what exists that someone had a plan in mind and they constructed this house, this dwelling, to be what it is. When I look at the human body, I don't have to wonder if over time it developed to become just what it is. No. The systems and capabilities and balance that's inside of each human being that didn't know what a system or anything was. They didn't create themselves. The nervous system, the circulatory blood system, the respiratory system, the endocrinology system, all of these systems, they didn't just make themselves and then bring themselves together to work in a complementary fashion. No. That says that there was a maker, a designer, someone who put this all together, and they had a plan to do so. When someone asks you, why do you believe his story? Why do you believe God? Why do you believe the Bible? They're asking you, basically, would you please share 1 Peter 3:15 with me? That is, be ready to give a reason for the hope that's in you with respect. Are you ready to give a reason for why you believe? Are you ready? We should learn how to tell our story clearly. We should learn how to tell our story concisely. And we should learn how to tell our story in a compelling way, an interesting way. Be authentic. You don't have to be transparent and tell about all the nooks and crannies and wrinkles and things in your life, but you can be honest and you can be open and you can invite them saying, listen, I know the way home for all of humanity. I'm going there and I invite you to come along with me. Shalom. We want to remind you that Tushiyah Life Ministries presents sound wisdom for a successful walk. That's really what we're about, helping to build and develop and grow disciples and apostles of Messiah Yeshua, whom we follow. Yahweh bless you and protect you. Yahweh lift up his face upon you and be gracious to you. Yahweh lift up his countenance toward you and give you shalom. It's in the name of Messiah Yeshua that I pronounce Yahweh's name over you to bless you.